Oilers Now digital content is sponsored by Legacy Heating and Cooling. No payments and no interest for a year. That's how you build a legacy.
Hello, Frank. How you doing?
Pretty good. How you doing, Bob?
Good. What did you think of the Oilers' final two games of the road trip against Tampa Bay and against the Florida Panthers? Two pretty good teams, albeit Tampa down a few defensemen, Florida down several players, Oilers missing some players as well, and Edmonton finishing off a stretch of a 7-game road trip, their second 5-plus game road trip out to the Eastern Conference this year, and losing 2-1 in overtime and then winning 6-3 in Florida. Your thoughts?
A step in the right direction. I mean, had to find a way to close out, particularly in OT, that game against Tampa after playing so well. Obviously, Vasilevsky comes up with that enormous save, well, 2 or 3 saves, I guess you could say, in OT, and that was the difference. Game against the Panthers, again, a lot of really good things, a lot of positives. And you're right, this is the end of a brutal stretch of hockey in terms of the schedule. Grueling in travel, grueling in distance, grueling in, at times, opponents and who's in front of you. But not an excuse. I think the process has really been lacking for the Oilers. I think it seems like it's trending in the right direction, but I think we've been careful to say that because once it looks like they get things on track, they throw one away. And so, look, I think they've survived, and really that's the mission and mandate in the first 6 weeks of the season. Don't sink your season. You can't win the Stanley Cup in October or November, but you can sure as heck lose it. And they haven't done that, and I don't expect them to.
I talked to management types from both clubs who both brought up the 16-8 split through the first 24 games, and management types from two clubs that have won Stanley Cups. In fact, have won 2 Stanley Cups each in those final 2 games. And the one comment was, when you factor the travel from the playoffs and going through what they went through emotionally.
Oh, come on. We can't do that. We can't. We're not going there, are we?
Can you hear me out, please?
Sure.
Everything you said is entirely valid. All they said is, for some, you don't, put it this way, you and me don't know what it's like to lose in a Stanley Cup final. I mean, there's a guy down in Calgary that does a show that talks regularly. He's lost 3 of them, and that's Rhett Warner. And he talks about how crappy it was every year to come back for that. But to also factor in 2 of the furthest, it's not like Edmonton got Winnipeg and Toronto in the conference final and the final. They got Dallas and Florida.
Oh, but come on, we can't. That's not a thing. Like, we're not actually doing that. Are we, Bob?
What do you buy in? Do you buy in or not into the fact that it may be just a simple byproduct that they had to get their EQ up, their emotional quotient up, or is that a cop out? Or do you think there's something to that?
The emotional part of it is big, but I refuse to allow the schedule to be the story as to why the Oilers have struggled.
Is it a is it a factor to why they're in the position they're in right now, or have they just simply not played well enough?
It's 15% of the story to me. Yeah. 20% of the story. It's not the whole thing. Hey, look, is anyone saying, the Colorado Avalanche, man, look at their schedule. They've played more road games than they have home games. The split isn't as drastic, but they've gone east a few times already this year.
They haven't. They didn't lose in the Stanley Cup final. Hey, I'm the first one to tell you. I think Colorado would have been a tough out for Edmonton both years. First, they were the one team I fear in the Western Conference the most. Okay, I'm just saying that they didn't play as long as Edmonton did. It's easier to come back, to recalibrate, to get jacked up. All of that said, I don't like Edmonton's game through the first 24 games either. That's
the only point I've made, and it's like, hey, well, look at how tough the schedule. Like, the schedule is what it is. You're going to have great runs in the schedule with easier opponents. You're going to have more home games for stretches of time. It's cyclical. What goes around comes around. Other teams are going to have tough spots too, but the Avalanche have one regulation loss in their first 22 games of the season. I can guarantee you that the amount of times that they've talked about their schedule has been 0. That's it.
Yeah.
That's what good teams do. They play what's in front of them, and they don't talk about their home and road splits. They don't.
Do you think the Avalanche were, just as an aside, do you think the Avalanche were a good team the last 2 years? Because I do. I'm shocked they didn't get to the. I'm shocked they didn't win the division each of the last 2 years. Shocked.
I think last year there was just too much change. Look, when you start the playoffs with 11 different players than opening night, I think that's a lot to ask. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of turnover. And you know what? They deserve a ton of credit for deciding at this exact moment in time 1 year ago that their goaltending wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
They said, enough, uncle. We're going to go out and be the first team in NHL history to change out both members of our tandem and redo it.
What should Vancouver and Calgary do right now? Because look, the Oilers aren't going to cash their chips in. They're still obviously in a win now mode. They're going to try to improve the team. I guess let's deal with the goaltending elephant right now. Just get it out there. I don't see anything imminent, but I think the goaltenders are going to define the course of action with Stan Bowman. Agree or disagree?
I think they're certainly going to have their fair share and say yes. Look, and that was really the only point that I was making about the Avs and last year was some say, oh, you can't change the goaltending. How are you going to make a trade mid-season? Never works. All those things. It's a list of reasons why you can't do something. My only point was the Avs are an example as to why you can. They were as cap-strapped as anyone last year.
Yeah.
Find solutions. If one facet of your team is inhibiting you from winning, and by no means am I saying goaltending is the only reason why the Oilers have struggled so far. It's not at all. There's a lot of factors, and I just mentioned that the schedule and the split is probably 15 to 20%. The goaltending is another 25 to 30%. And you smash that with some injuries, another 20%, and pick another facet of the team, the attention to detail defending, another 20%. I mean, whatever it is that you want to hang it on, there's lots of reasons for why the play has been substandard, and goaltending is absolutely a part of it. The only question to answer is, and we started to have this discussion last week in our conversation, which was, are you confident Ken Stewart-Skinner and Cal Pickard lead this team to a Stanley Cup? That's really all it's about. For every facet of this team, is this cup contender, cup caliber quality? And if the answer is no, then you have to work to fix it. Simple as that. And it might not be easy. It might be expensive. It might be a lot of things. But to leave any stones unturned at this juncture of what the Oilers are and what their expectations are, it's unacceptable. And everyone knows that. So the Oilers have been the standard. They are the standard. The Avs are trying to get to that point right now.
Yeah.
But the Oilers have a lot of work to do to continue to hold up that standard.
As good as Florida was the last 2 years, the best team Edmonton's played in the playoffs the last 4 years was the 2022 Colorado Avalanche. Okay? I'm actually shocked they haven't won again after how they dominated that series head-to-head against Edmonton. Oilers had a really good night.
Speaks to how difficult it is to win.
It is difficult to win. So when you say, are they good enough to get you? They got to the Stanley Cup with the tandem. But as far as I'm concerned...
They won a Stanley Cup in spite of their goaltending. They had some of the worst goaltending that won.
Yeah. So, you're referring to Colorado or Edmonton? You're referring to Colorado.
Yes, Colorado.
Yeah. It is interesting.
They're one of the only teams in this era to win a Stanley Cup with sub-900 save percentage in the playoffs.
I think ultimately the play of Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard likely over the next month is going to decide the course of action that Stan Bowman's going to have. That's my guess. To me,
and they've resisted the urge to this point.
Yeah. All right. Let's switch focus. Calgary and Vancouver. Let's start with the Flames. What should they do?
Remove as many pieces as quickly as possible. Well, okay, let's back up. The first thing is to not let Don Maloney near a microphone again as president of Hockey Ops. The second thing is to give Craig Conroy a contract extension, because the fact that he doesn't have one right now while operating this team sends a brutal message. And the third thing would then be, once everything's solidified, to remove as many pieces from the lineup that you can extract significant value for as quickly as possible. Prevent the accumulation of points. I don't want to oversimplify it, but for a team that's never bottomed out, has never had the number one pick, rarely drafts high, this special 2026 draft class is the one to do it for. Heck, they might do it organically, but they're also 4-1-1 in their last 6, and I think the last thing you want to see them do if you're a Flames fan is pile up points unnecessarily.
Yeah.
Don't climb back into the race. The only thing you're going to do is drag yourself further away, and especially if Dustin Wolf gets hot, from actually getting what you need. Because anything other than that, you're pretending this year.
I do find it, I'm a little bit surprised they haven't extended Conroy, because they've kind of had this internal solution, the promotions of Conroy and Huska, not to mention Pascal there for several years. And I think those guys got a pretty good handle of what they have, or perhaps better, what they don't really have.
Steve Nonis works there? I mean, what are we doing with Don Maloney? I don't understand it. Why is anyone taking any orders from him? Why is he the boss?
Yeah.
What's his track record for success?
It's funny.
Someone help me.
We have a large percentage of Canadians. I would say probably, and maybe David Staples can correct me if he's listening right now, I think it's better than 60% of Canadians are totally for nation-building things like pipelines. And yet we have people politically that try to, suggest that, the will of the people's not there. And then we've got, guys speaking in Calgary talking about the fact, well, we don't do this. When what I interpret from people at host shows and fans in that market is they're totally ready for it. They want it. And it's just, it sort of kind of defies a little bit of logic. And Frank, it almost comes across like when you saw the interviews that Maloney did, almost a little bit tone deaf to the market.
Tone deaf. I mean, he practically spit in the face of the market.
Yeah.
The marketplace is pounding its fist on the table, saying, "Get us a great draft pick. Get us a franchise-changing player. We haven't had one. We don't have one. Maybe you've got a franchise goalie in Dustin Wolf that you got in the 7th round, and you've got a great defenseman on the way in Zane Parekh. But you need that special center, the special forward, and they don't have it." So to sit back and say, we need more Nazem Kadris at 35 years old, not less, I just don't. I love Nazem Kadri.
Did they already?
If this Flames team was in a different spot, I'd say keep him. But he doesn't help you right now, and he's not going to help you based on where you're trying to get to.
I mean, it seems ironic that we're bringing up Rasmus Andersson in a week that he's Player of the Week, but would they not have been better off to have traded him last year so a team could have had him for a year and a bit? Would they have not gotten more back?
I don't think they based on the offers and conversations that they had in the summer, he had a relatively average year last year, and he's definitely played better this year than last. The best course of action was to hang on to him and try and milk as much value as possible.
So we have another team in the West, the Vancouver Canucks. Are they in a somewhat similar position in Calgary? Do they maybe need to? I mean, it's crazy. At one time, they had 3 centers, right? They had Horvat, they had Miller, and they had Pettersson. And now they have one, and they're constantly looking for a second, and their best player by a mile is Quinn Hughes, and I think there's lots of people that aren't sold that he's going to be in there in a year and a half from now. What do you think Vancouver should do?
Well, I think as this season goes along, they've got some incredibly difficult conversations to have that perhaps even before the trade deadline, it's fair to engage in some dialogue with Quinn Hughes and his representation to say, we know that you're eligible to sign on July 1. We'd move heaven and earth to keep you here, to build around you, to make this team be in a shared interest to be as competitive as possible. However, if you would like to go somewhere else, or if your plan is to ultimately walk in free agency anyway, can we begin to engage in those conversations now and begin this process as opposed to waiting until July to really understand how our team is going to take shape?
Yeah. What about Philadelphia for Quinn Hughes, given the connection to Rick Tocchet and the amount of assets that have been built up by Daniel Briere and Keith Jones and company?
I think they're one team in the Metropolitan Division in the Eastern Conference that would be salivating to try and get their hands on Quinn Hughes, but they're far from alone. And, you know, everyone circles New Jersey because of his two brothers that are playing there, and obviously that makes a ton of sense, but how does New Jersey pull it off? And does even acquiring Quinn Hughes come at the expense of Luke Hughes? Like, Luke can't run PP1 if Quinn Hughes is on there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you look at Philly, and Luchenko got traded today in the OHL. Spencer Hyman's loading up the Bulldogs big time. But, man, oh, man, I mean, they got I think they got 3 or 4 first-rounders not playing for them. They got 2 more first-rounders this year. They've got a guy that in Drysdale, could they not basically flip him for Hughes as part of the package? You think they might be able to do that. Very similar type of players, but Hughes is better. I just look at it like Philly to me, and there's the Tocchet connection. That looks like the natural fit.
And it's close to New Jersey. I mean, it's the Flyers practice in New Jersey, for Christ's sake. So
I wonder whether or not wonder whether or not, Frank, that Vancouver doesn't beat Calgary to the punch here in starting this process.
Well, they both have the common thread that ties the two franchises together is that they both have owners that are very reticent to strip things down, and it's a lot of it is tied to revenue generation and being competitive, and those are going to be some hard conversations. I don't think either one is ready. I mean, as evidenced by Don Maloney's comments, is ready to pull the plug.
St. Louis and Nashville, what are you hearing there?
Barry Trotz mentioned over the weekend that he needs his players to be bleeping better. I thought was relatively rich in the sense that what they really need is a manager with a cohesive and coherent plan. Their coaching staff has been all over the place. They've got they're rudderless right now in Nashville. And St. Louis, they've played slightly better of late. They have a long way to go. Their goaltending has been atrocious, and they're hungry and ready to do something. I don't think Nashville knows where to turn. I think St. Louis, Doug Armstrong would sell everything, save for maybe a few pieces. All
right, final question. Frank Seravalli from Frankly Hockey. We save the best for last? Toronto? Wow. It's something right now, isn't it?
If by last you mean last in the Eastern Conference, that's exactly where they find themselves as we approach.
They're a better team than this, aren't they?
I honestly don't know. I think they are better than this, meaning 16th place, but they're a very average hockey team. And the funny part about this season is that they've actually scored more this year than they did last year, believe it or not. Their goaltending has blown up. Joe Wall is now in to try and save the day with Anthony Stolarz a ways away, according to Craig Berube. And they've got existential questions to face in the sense that, okay, Mitch Marner's not here. And by the way, Marner's on track for his least productive season in a non-COVID year. But what are the Leafs? Who are they? And where are they going? Because I don't really know the answer to that question. They don't defend well. They can score, but there's no cohesion. They seem lifeless and soulless, and that part is really concerning.
Frank, awesome hit. Tell people about Frankly Hockey.
Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. Mountain Time on Victory Plus app, as well as on Twitter and YouTube. So lots of different ways to get it now. And, looking forward to continuing the conversation on a daily basis.
All right, awesome stuff. Thanks for your time.
See you, Bob.